The wind moved like it had a memory. It swept low through Dustwater Bend, dragging sand across cracked wood and the faded bones of a town that no longer whispered, just waited. Shutters hung like broken eyelids, half closed on buildings that hadn't seen laughter in years. The sun poured down like punishment, and not a soul stood in the open to defy it. Except her. She was crawling, her hands scraped over gravel and splinters, knees bleeding through what was left of her dress, just rags now, clinging to sunburnt skin and hope so thin you could see through it. Her breath came in dry whimpers. Hair like black wire stuck to her cheeks, caked in dust. She dragged herself past the warped sign of the old saloon, now leaning like it too, was tired of standing. A mule skull lay half-buried near the trough. She didn't look at it. She collapsed beside the rusted hitching post and didn't move. Then hoofbeats. One horse. One rider. The sound came slow, deliberate. The kind of rhythm that said the man on the saddle had nowhere to be and nothing left to lose. The kind of rhythm that towns like Dustwater Bend remembered from back when justice and death looked the same from a distance. He rode into town like a ghost out of the heat. Dust rose behind him. His horse, a lean black Mustang with eyes too knowing, walked straight past the church ruins and toward the saloon. Toward her. She blinked once. Then again. The rider dismounted without a word. His boots hit the ground with a muted thud, dust blooming up around them. He was tall and weather-bitten, the kind of man who carried the desert in his bones. A battered hat shadowed his eyes, but the shape of his jaw and the quiet curl at one corner of his mouth said he'd seen better days and didn't trust them. He looked down at the girl. "You alive?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her eyes were cracked glass. He crouched beside her, the sun catching the edge of a revolver at his hip. "No buzzards yet," he muttered. "That's promising." With effort as slow as mercy, he took off his canteen and tipped a few drops into her mouth. She flinched, then drank like a starving calf, choking, coughing, grasping at the metal. "Easy now," he said. Her lips worked. No sound came. The rider studied her for a long beat. Then, gently, he lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, like something emptied and left behind. Her head fell against his chest as he turned toward the canyon trail west of town. He didn't ask her name. The fire cracked, and night whispered through the rocks. They were camped in a shallow ravine, the walls keeping the wind honest. A bedroll lay beside the flames, and she was wrapped in a blanket too big for her shoulders. She sat hunched, staring at the tin plate of beans in her lap, like it might still betray her. The rider poked the fire with a stick. Sparks lifted, bright and brief. "Name's Colt," he said, not looking at her. "Colt Morrow." "Nothing. I was heading south. Saw you." Still nothing. He nodded, not offended. Just resigned. "You talk when you want to," he said, voice low. "Or not at all. Won't bother me none." The silence stretched. The desert made room for it. She finally spoke, voice raw as sandpaper. "Water," she croaked. "More water." He handed her the canteen. Her fingers trembled as she drank. She looked older in the firelight, not in years, but in damage. Like time had cut too close. "You come far?" he asked. Her eyes flicked to him. Something behind them flinched. "Days," she said. "I don't know how many." He nodded. "Let it lie." They sat like that for a while, the fire burning down slow, casting long shadows on the canyon walls. At last, she spoke again. Softer this time. "They left me." "Who?" "Don't matter." "Reckon it might," he said. Her fingers tightened on the tin plate. "They left me. Thought I'd die out there." "You almost did." Silence again. She reached into her rags and pulled something out. A scrap of paper, folded, torn at the edges. She handed it to him. He took it slowly, unfolded it. A telegram. Smudged but legible. "To Abner McLean." "Stop." She got out. "He'll come for her." "Stop." "Dustwater Bend." "Stop." Colt's jaw tightened. He folded the paper and handed it back. "You know who that is?" he asked. She nodded. "You." She looked at him. Eyes still glassy, but not broken. "I was told he used to kill men who needed killing." Colt stared into the fire. "Used to." A long pause. I'm Sadie, she said. He nodded. All right, Sadie. Later, under the stars, she lay awake and watched the fire die. Colt sat nearby, playing a slow tune on a harmonica. Not a song of joy or sorrow, just something to keep the silence from swallowing them whole. When the last note faded, he looked at her through the glow. I've been there too, he said simply. In the dust, not knowing if I was worth anything anymore. She didn't answer. Didn't have to. She just nodded, once a fragile thing, like her ribs might break from it. The fire crackled low, and the canyon held them. Somewhere far off, a coyote cried, and Colt Morrow watched the stars, thinking maybe this time he wasn't too late. The canyon sun came early, slipping over the red cliffs like a secret. Colt was already awake, crouched near the fire, sharpening a knife against a flat stone. His face hadn't changed overnight, still hard angles and quiet eyes, but something about him felt more watchful now, like he'd gone from drifting to deciding. Sadie stirred under the blanket, eyes half-lidded but alert. You don't sleep, she said. Colt didn't look up. Sometimes I do, he answered. Not last night. She sat up, brushing dust from her arms. Her skin was blistered, but the pain didn't show anymore. Just the resolve underneath. You knew that name, she said. He said nothing, only dragged the blade once more across the stone, slow and even. McLean, she pressed. That was you. Colt finally set the knife down. It was, he said, before I buried him. She stared. Why? His gaze met hers. Because men like him don't get to rest. They rode out before noon, Colt up front, Sadie close behind. Her horse was thin and borrowed from the canyon's edge, a wild Mustang that barely tolerated the saddle. She rode like someone who hadn't done it much, but held on with the same grip she used for living, white-knuckled, stubborn. They didn't talk much, but the land did. It stretched open in every direction, broken only by brush, buzzards, and wind-split mesas. Somewhere beyond the horizon sat Dry Rock, a town that hadn't had a sheriff worth a badge in 10 years, and where the law didn't ask questions so long as the whiskey ran clear. Colt pointed to a crooked hill in the distance, dotted with dead trees. 2 days out, he said. We'll rest there before going in. Sadie didn't respond, just reached into her satchel and fingered the folded telegram like it was still warm from the wire. Later, when the sun dipped and shadows grew tall, they made camp near a dry creek bed. Colt cleaned his rifle in silence. Sadie watched him, then reached for her own side, revealing a small, rusted pistol sheath tucked beneath her coat. He raised an eyebrow. You know how to use that? She didn't answer. He chuckled. Thought not. I'll learn, she said. Quick. Better be quicker than a man with more scars than patience. She looked at him sharply. You mean coil? Colt's smile faded. He set the rifle aside and picked up a tin of beans. Don't say his name out here, he said. Some men are carried on the wind. She hesitated. He's looking for me. I figured. I took something, she said quietly. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. She pulled out a worn leather book, bound in string. Colt looked at it. He didn't reach for it. What is it? He asked. Ledger, she said. Names, bribes, routes, even Sheriff of Dry Rock's in it. Colt's jaw shifted. You know what you're carrying, girl. I know what it cost me. A silence settled between them. The fire hissed. Night pressed in. You didn't come to Dustwater by accident, did you? He asked. She looked away. I didn't know if the man in the stories was real. I hoped. Colt stared into the fire. And if he wasn't? I'd have died anyway. He didn't argue. They reached the hill by dusk the next day. It overlooked a bend in the trail leading into Dry Rock. The town was still out of sight, but the scent of gun oil and tobacco drifted in the wind like a warning. Colt tethered the horses beneath a dead pine and scanned the horizon with field eyes. Sadie sat beside him, watching the clouds pile heavy in the west. I dreamed of my father last night, she said softly. Yeah, he said my hands weren't meant for shooting, that they were meant for growing things. Colt didn't respond. But he's dead, she added, and the ground he loved's burned to ash. A long silence. He reached into his coat, pulled something out, a small, worn harmonica, and handed it to her. "I ain't a preacher," he said. "Ain't a hero neither. But music helps sometimes." She took it, surprised. "You play?" "I used to," he said, when the killing stopped. He stood and shouldered his rifle. Dry Rock's full of men who forgot what it costs to sleep at night. They've bought quiet with other folks' blood. You show him that book, they'll bury you. "Then what do we do?" she asked. "We don't go knocking," he said. "We burn the hinges off the door." Just before nightfall, Colt led her into a shadowed hollow. A lone shack sat crooked at the edge of a dried-up creek, windows boarded, roof sagging. Smoke rose faint from the chimney. "Marta Quayle lives here," Colt said. "Used to be the best shot west of the Divide." "Used to." She retired when the lead got too loud. He knocked once. Then again. A pause. Then the door creaked open, and a rifle muzzle filled the frame. "Colt," a gravel voice said, "you've got dust on your boots and trouble in your eyes." "Both true," he said. "Let us in." The muzzle dropped. The door opened wider. Inside, it smelled like pine, leather, and gun oil. Marta Quayle stood like a mountain, gray hair tied back, one eye milky, the other still sharp. She glanced at Sadie. "The girl?" Colt nodded. "She's got a storm chasing her." "Then she came to the right shelter," Marta said. "But it won't hold." She walked to a cupboard, pulled out a map, and unrolled it on the table. Her hands were calloused and precise. "Coyle's been running cattle and guns through Dry Rock for months now," she said. "He's bribed half the town and scared the other half into silence." Sadie laid the ledger down beside the map. Marta studied it. "Well, I'll be," she whispered. This is a fire." She looked up at Colt. "You planning to start it?" Colt looked to Sadie. She didn't flinch. "I already did." Outside, the wind howled over the ridge. The sky had gone strange, clouds purple and wild. The smell of rain and gunpowder was in the air. The fire inside flickered, and in the silence that followed, every one of them knew. The storm was almost here. Dry Rock wasn't much from a distance. A scattering of roofs, a crooked steeple, the shimmering hint of smoke rising from a dozen chimneys. But Colt Morrow didn't look at rooftops. He watched the shadows that lingered too long, the movements that were too slow or too smooth. He knew ambush when it breathed. They came in on foot, just past dawn. Left the horses tethered 2 ridges out. Marta had lent them both long coats, worn and colorless, and a shotgun wrapped in burlap. The ledger stayed strapped tight beneath Sadie's coat, bound across her ribs like a second spine. No one spoke on the walk-in. Dry Rock's main street was quiet, but not sleepy. A stillness that listened. 2 boys tossed dice behind the saloon. A man swept dust from a porch that would be covered in it again by noon. A woman stared too long from a second-story window. Sadie touched Colt's arm. "They're watching." "I know." They passed the sheriff's office. The door was open. Colt didn't stop. The plan had been simple. Get in. Get the book to Alden Grace, the town's old postmaster, half blind but loyal once, and let him wire it east. Government men would come. With names like these, they have to. But simple plans never meet simple endings. When they stepped into the post office, Alden wasn't there. Just a man in a long coat and a slow smile. Colt froze. Sadie stopped behind him. "Well," the man said, "didn't expect you to walk in all polite." He stepped forward. Younger than Colt, cleaner. But something hollow behind the charm, like he'd peeled off humanity and wore it inside out. "Name's Vess," he said. "Coyle's been waiting to—" Colt didn't blink. "Where's Grace?" Vess tapped his boot against something on the floor. Sadie looked. Her breath caught. Boots. Half covered by the counter. Still. Vess smiled wider. "Don't worry. He won't talk." Colt moved first. The shot was silent, a knife, fast and low. Vess dodged barely, arm slashed as he fell back with a curse. Gunfire cracked. The windows shattered behind them. Colt pulled Sadie down, shoved her behind a desk. "Back door now." "I'm not leaving you." "Now, Sadie." She ran. Colt fired twice, dropping one man outside. Vess vanished into the street smoke, shouting orders. Boots thundered from both ends of town. By the time Colt turned, Sadie was gone. She didn't run far. Her heart pounded like a gun against her chest. She took alley turns sharp and breathless until the town opened around her. Too wide, too loud, too late. They were already closing in. She ducked into the old mercantile, half abandoned, its shelves stripped bare. She slid behind the counter, pulled the ledger out from her coat. Her hands shook. If she left now, if she got past them, it could still make it out. Everything she'd bled for, everything they'd burned to hide, it could still matter. The door creaked. A shadow fell. She turned. Coil. Bigger than she remembered. Older, but not weaker. Time hadn't softened him. It had sharpened the edges, burned the rest away. His coat hung open, his hands empty. He didn't need a gun to kill her. Well now, he drawled. You've been busy. Sadie backed away. The ledger clutched like a blade. You're a ghost, she said. They said you died. I did. Then I came back. His eyes tracked her. You took something that wasn't yours. I took proof. He stepped forward. You don't understand what you're carrying. Those names? Those men own more than you'll ever see. You think burning them down changes anything. She didn't flinch. It's a start. Coil moved faster than she expected. 1 second across the room. He grabbed her wrist, twisted it hard. She cried out, dropped the ledger. He slammed her back against the counter, breath gone. Colt won't get to you this time. He hissed. I don't need him to. A crack, the sound of wood splitting. Coil turned too late. Colt hit him like a storm, fists, elbows, a weight behind years of silence. They crashed into shelves, cans clattering. Coil grabbed him by the throat. Colt smashed a jar into his face. Blood and glass. Both men breathing like animals. Sadie grabbed the ledger and stepped back. Coil pulled a knife. Colt blocked the first swing, caught the second in his arm. Blood soaked his sleeve. Coil sneered. I should have finished you back in the canyon. You tried. Colt spat. But you're too slow. The third swing never came. Sadie raised the shotgun Marta had packed and fired. Coil hit the ground, not dead but broken. Silence followed. Dust settled. Colt leaned against the wall, arm bleeding, but standing. Sadie lowered the gun, hands shaking. You okay? He asked. No. He nodded. Good. Means you're still human. They left Dry Rock by nightfall. The telegraph station east of town was lit. A new operator. Young. Brave enough to send what needed sending. The ledger went out under government seal. A name and a message to follow. The east would burn its way west soon enough. They stopped at the canyon ridge, just before the land bent toward open desert. Colt wrapped his arm. Sadie sat nearby, staring at her hands. You didn't flinch, he said. I did, she whispered. I just did it anyway. He smiled. That's the difference. She looked at him, eyes full of something he couldn't name. I thought I came looking for a man to save me, she said, but I found one who just walked beside me instead. Colt looked away. The stars were rising. That's all I ever wanted to be. They sat in silence. Somewhere behind them, justice was waking. Ahead, dust, wind, and tomorrow. Sadie opened her mouth to speak. Colt didn't ask. Some truths don't need words. Only fire. They rode at first light. The desert was pale gold, stretched flat and wide as a promise. Heat shimmered off the rocks. A hawk circled overhead, crying once before it vanished into cloudless sky. Colt Morrow rode without speaking. His arm, wrapped tight beneath his coat, bled in slow pulses, but he didn't show it. His jaw was set, eyes shadowed. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Sadie followed a pace behind. The ledger was gone, wired east, sealed under government lock, but its weight remained. She still rode like she was carrying something heavy. They didn't talk about Dry Rock. Not yet. They didn't talk about Coil either. Colt had left him breathing, tied up, and stripped of every weapon. The telegram would bring federal men in a week, maybe 2. But whether justice or revenge got there first was anyone's guess. Marta stayed behind to keep him honest. The town didn't thank them. It just watched. The land changed as they rode west, flatter, dustier. Juniper gave way to bone-dry sage. The wind picked up around midday, carrying grit into every wrinkle and fold. They stopped only once to water the horses and check the trail. Colt winced when he moved. Sadie noticed. "You should rest." "Later." "Why not now?" He didn't answer. A lizard skittered across a rock. The wind howled low. "I saw what you did back there," she said. "You didn't kill him." "No." "Why?" Colt didn't look at her. "Because I'm not who I was." "And who are you?" "Still figuring it out." He took a slow breath. "You." Sadie looked down at her hands. The blisters had faded. New calluses had formed. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. "But I don't think that's the same thing as being free." Colt nodded, like he understood that more than he could say. They made camp near the old arroyo, a sunken riverbed that had long since given up on water. The sky went crimson as the sun slipped behind a wall of rock. Shadows stretched out like fingers, clawing toward the fire they built with dry brush and old silence. Colt sat on a flat stone, peeling dried blood from his sleeve. Sadie handed him a clean bandage. "Let me." He didn't argue. She worked in silence, wrapping his arm with care. Her hands didn't shake anymore. Colt flinched once, but said nothing. "You've taken a lot of wounds," she said quietly. "They don't all heal right." She tied the bandage tight. "Some never do." They sat in the firelight, watching the sparks drift into darkness. "What'll you do now?" Sadie asked. Colt tossed a twig into the flames. "There's a homestead out near Bitter Fork. Belonged to a friend of mine. He's gone now. Left it to whoever could keep it standing." "You gonna try?" "I might." Sadie nodded. "I've got nothing to go back to," she said. "But I don't want to run anymore." "You won't have to." She looked up. His eyes met hers. "I'm not much good at starting things," he said. "But I'll help you build if you want." The wind stirred. Something passed between them. Not a promise. Not quite. Just enough. The next morning, Colt walked into Dry Rock alone. The town was quiet, sun just breaking the edges of the rooftops. Sadie stayed behind at the ridge, watching from the distance. She understood now. This was his burden, not hers. He didn't wear his coat, didn't carry his rifle, just his name and the things he'd buried under it. The sheriff's office door was swinging. Inside, the badge lay on the desk. Colt stood there for a moment, looked at the chair, looked at the wall where his own face had once hung, wanted for desertion, for murder, for riding with outlaws who became worse than the law. He took the badge, held it in his hand, then set it back down. He walked out and toward the church. A crowd had gathered, not large, townsfolk who had seen enough to know change when it rolled in on tired horses. Some stared, others nodded once. No one stopped him. At the chapel steps stood a girl, Marta's niece, wide-eyed and holding a folded piece of paper. "Ma'am said to give this to you," she whispered. He opened it. 3 names. One circled. Below it, Marta's handwriting. "He'll ride before the marshals do. If you want to end it clean, you'll have to do it yourself." Colt folded the paper, looked down Main Street, at the last trail out of town, heading north. A single rider there. Coil. Already loose. Already running. Sadie met him at the edge of town. She didn't ask. Just saw his eyes. "You're going after him." He nodded. "It's not your fight anymore," she said. Colt looked past her, at the sky, at the dust lifting behind that far figure. "Then I'll end it anyway." She stepped closer. "You can let him go." "I could." She didn't try to stop him again. Just touched his arm. "Then come back." He mounted his horse, checked his saddle, the old revolver, the knife. Sadie watched him like she was memorizing something final. "You already made peace once," she said. He nodded. "Now I'm making sure it holds." He turned his horse toward the trail and rode. No last words. No farewell. Just the dust rising behind him, like smoke from a long-burning fire. Colt found him in a dry ravine 2 days north of Dry Rock. The desert narrowed there, hemmed in by high stone walls scorched red by the sun. A place where the wind didn't speak, and even the birds stayed quiet. Coil had made camp under the shadow of a dead juniper. His horse, thin and limping, grazed half-heartedly nearby. Colt watched from the ridge until the fire crackled low. He came down quiet. Coyle heard him anyway. "You ride slow," he said, not looking up. "I figured you'd come." Colt didn't answer. "You want the truth, or the ending?" "I came for both." Coyle chuckled. "Thought so." They sat across from each other, no guns drawn. Just two men shaped by the same land, wearing different ghosts. Coyle pulled a flask from his coat, tossed it over. Colt caught it. "Didn't drink." "I should have killed you in Santa Rita," Coyle said. "You tried. I knew you had a conscience even then. Should have left you buried with it." Colt stared at the flames. "You remember that girl?" he asked. "The one you left tied in that canyon draw?" Coyle shrugged. "There were plenty. I remember her face." "Then you ain't learned to forget. That's why you're here, limping through the dust like a dying dog." Colt didn't blink. "I'm not here to forget. I'm here to finish." The silence stretched. Then Coyle stood, slow and smooth, and turned to face him. "Draw, then." Colt stood too, but didn't reach for his gun. "No." Coyle's lip curled. "What, you too holy now? Gonna let the law handle it?" "You're not worth killing." Coyle's eyes flashed. That old fire, proud and poisoned. "You think walking away makes you better?" "No," Colt said, "but it makes me different." Coyle stepped forward, hand on his gun. "Then I guess I'll help you forget that difference." He drew. Colt didn't. A shot rang out. Coyle staggered. "Look down." Blood soaked his side. He turned, confused, as Sadie stepped from behind the ridge, rifle in hand, face set like stone. "I said come back," she said. "I didn't say I'd wait." Coyle dropped to his knees. "Not dead. Not yet." Colt walked to him. Knelt. "You could have walked away too," he said. Coyle spat blood. "I'm not built like you." "No," Colt said quietly. "You're not." They buried him beneath the juniper. No words. Just a stone and the silence of the ravine. The wind picked up as they packed. "Do you regret it?" Sadie asked. Colt thought for a long while. "No, but I wish it hadn't been needed." They rode out before noon. Didn't look back. Weeks passed. The federal marshals came through Dry Rock with cold eyes and iron orders. Names from the ledger got hunted down, one by one. Some ran. Some begged. Some turned each other in like cowards. Marta stayed in town, made sure the right stories got told. The girl who once couldn't speak above a whisper became the loudest truth in the room. Colt never went back. Neither did Sadie. They built the homestead near Bitter Fork. The land was dry, cracked like memory, but the soil held water if you dug deep enough. They worked from sunup to nightfall, hands raw, back sore. Colt never wore his gun unless he had to. Never slept too far from it, either. Sadie learned to fix fences, to kill a rattler with one shot, to drive a post without breaking her wrist. One night rain came. Hard, sudden. She ran outside, laughing like it was a thing she'd forgotten how to do. Colt stepped out behind her, let the water soak through his shirt. It smelled like something clean. She looked at him, eyes shining. "This doesn't fix everything," she said. "No," he said, "but it's something." They stood in silence, rain running over scars and into the roots. Autumn rolled in soft and orange. The wind still carried dust, but it wasn't the kind that blinded you. Colt sat on the porch one evening, sharpening a blade. Sadie brought coffee in a tin cup. They watched the sunset without needing to speak. The ghosts hadn't left, but they'd gone quiet. A letter came, weeks later, from Dry Rock. It carried a wax seal and a single sentence in Marta's handwriting. "They've named you clean." Colt folded the letter, set it under a stone, didn't smile, didn't cry, just looked out across the land. It had taken from him and given something back. Not peace, but purpose. He never hung the badge, never needed to. Some things are finished better in dust than in metal. That night, Sadie whispered as they lay under the stars, "What do we do now?" Colt answered without opening his eyes, "We live."